The heat of the late afternoon pressed down like a heavy blanket as the lone cowboy rode across the sandstone flats. His name was Daniel Pike, though the world had mostly shortened it to Pike. He was the kind of man who carried tiredness in his bones, not from lack of sleep, but from years of roads that led to nobody waiting at the end. His horse, Jasper, stumbled again, and Pike stopped, swinging down to check the hoof wrapped in dust. The horse winced as Pike lifted the leg. A sharp stone, lodged deep. A man could ignore pain for a while, but a horse couldn't. Pike sighed, wiped sweat from his brow, and spoke softly to the animal. There was love in his voice, though rough as rope and quiet as wind. He dug out the stone with the tip of his knife and eased Jasper's leg back down. Still tender, still hurting. They needed water, shade, time. The desert didn't care about need. It offered only what it chose. Pike scanned the horizon. To most people, the desert looked empty. But he'd been out here long enough to know it was filled with paths invisible to anyone who hadn't spent years reading silence. Off to the left, a dry wash cut through the terrain. Washes sometimes meant pools of trapped water under rocks or a bit of shade where mesquite twisted its branches. He guided Jasper that way. The sound of wind sliding over stone was the only thing accompanying them. No birds, no insects. The air shimmered like the world was melting. Pike felt the faint dizziness that came before heat exhaustion, but he gritted his teeth and stayed upright. He'd been through worse. Worse had names, places, people. He didn't think about those now. At last he reached the wash. A fallen tree trunk, long weathered to smooth gray wood, lay across the sand. It wasn't shade, but it was something to take weight off aching legs. Pike tied Jasper to a thorn bush and sat down slow, stretching his legs out, boots dusty, spurs still. He didn't know that just 20 paces away, hidden behind a cluster of sagebrush, an Apache woman watched him. Her name was Nayeli. Her face was set stern, unreadable, but her eyes were sharp, bright, always listening. She had seen the cowboy long before he had any idea she existed. She had followed him quietly, her steps soundless on the desert floor. To her, this land was not scenery. It was memory, story, bloodline. Every rock had been touched by her people's footsteps. Every canyon held songs older than any town. When Pike sat, she could see exhaustion hollowing his posture. She could also see he was no raider, no soldier, no prospector. His clothes were worn, but well cared for. His gun was cleaned, oiled, used only when needed. And he carried sadness in his shoulders. Nayeli knew the shape of sadness. It echoed like a drum inside her every day. But sympathy didn't excuse trespassing. She was preparing to step forward and confront him when she saw movement near his boots. A rattlesnake, slow and deliberate, slid out from a crevice in the cracked earth. Its scales shimmered bronze and dusty gold. It moved with the unhurried grace of something that knew its power. It nestled itself right between Pike's boots, close enough to strike his leg, artery, or groin. One wrong twitch and poison would be in his blood within seconds. Pike had no idea. The desert air went still, heavy, poised. Nayeli stepped out from behind the sagebrush like a shadow becoming real, her voice sharp enough to stop the wind itself. "Cowboy, do not move. Do not even take a breath larger than you need." Pike's body froze, but his mind sharpened instantly. He didn't look down. He didn't turn his head. He only spoke softly. "You see it, don't you?" "Yes," she answered, "and it sees you." Her voice held something strong, not fear, not anger, but deep respect. To her, a rattlesnake was not just danger. It was a messenger of the land. But this message was not one meant to kill today. Not if she could stop it. Pike started to lower his hand toward his side where his revolver sat, but she moved instantly. "Do not touch that gun. You shoot, you die. The snake strikes faster than your hand moves." Pike believed her. That was his first sign she was someone to listen to. The rattlesnake's rattle was silent. That was the worst kind, the ones confident enough not to warn. Nayeli crouched, slow, controlled, every muscle guided by years of training. She slid her hand along the shaft of her hunting spear, angled it so the blade kissed the air above the snake's coiled body. Then she whispered in her people's language, a soft chant that matched the rhythm of her breathing. The snake lifted its head, tongue flicking. One precise motion, her spear came down clean and final. The rattlesnake fell still. Pike let out a breath that left him shaky, though he kept his voice steady. "Thank you." Nayeli pulled the spear back, wiped the blade on the sand, and stood tall. "You walk where you do not belong," she said. Pike nodded. He wasn't a man who wasted words. Didn't mean trouble, only looking for water. There is little water here, she replied, stepping closer. And strangers are given none. Her eyes didn't soften, but something thoughtful passed through them. She looked at Jasper. The horse was limping, breathing uneven, struggling under the heat. You treat your horse as though he is your brother, she observed. He's the only one who stayed, Pike answered simply. That truth sat in the air, real and heavy. Naeli lowered her spear, but did not relax it. I could leave you here. The land would finish what the snake did not. Could, Pike agreed, but something tells me you won't. The corner of her mouth almost moved, not a smile, but something like it. You will follow me, she said. Where to? To where the land has not yet decided to kill you. Pike stood slowly, careful, respectful. She did not look back to see if he followed. She already knew he would. And the desert watched them go, silent and ancient, as if it recognized the beginning of something it had been waiting a long time to see. The moment Pike stepped into view beside Naeli, every sound in the Apache camp changed. It didn't stop, it shifted. Children stopped their play and stared, their carved toys held still in their hands. Women paused mid-motion, their steady working rhythm interrupted for just a heartbeat. Men standing near the fire looked up, eyes sharpened, hands drawn subtly closer to knives, bows, spear shafts. Not a single shout or threat was made, but Pike had been around danger long enough to recognize it when it settled on him like a shadow. Naeli did not show hesitation. She walked straight forward, her steps calm and intentional, her spear pointed down but never far from her reach. Pike followed behind her with the quiet respect of a man smart enough to know he was alive only because someone allowed it. An older woman approached first. Her hair was streaked with gray, braided with feathers. Her face held lines earned through years of sun, storms, and survival. She looked at Naeli, then at Pike, then at the wounded horse. Her voice was low and steady when she spoke in Apache, words Pike could not understand. Naeli responded, speaking only a few sentences. The elder nodded. No fear, no anger, only measured acceptance, the kind that says, we will see what this means later. But not everyone shared that calm. From the far side of the camp, a man strode toward them, a broad-shouldered warrior with a braided leather band wrapped around his arm. His face was stern, carved with the quiet authority of someone used to being obeyed. He was Naeli's brother, though Pike didn't know that yet. His name was Taham, and his gaze carried something sharper than hostility, responsibility. He stopped only a few paces from the cowboy, his posture solid and unyielding. Pike didn't reach for his gun. He didn't need to. Taham was not a man who hid intent. If he wanted violence, it would already have begun. Naeli spoke before he could. He is under my protection. Taham's jaw tightened. The words carried weight in this land. To protect someone meant to stake reputation and trust on them. Naeli did not offer her protection lightly. Taham looked Pike over, eyes searching for something more than appearance. He found silence, a tiredness, and a steadiness he could not ignore. He exhaled through his nose and turned away without a word. Pike didn't take this as acceptance. He took it for what it was, a delay in judgment. Naeli led him to a shaded area near the edge of camp. She brought a clay bowl of water for Jasper and a woven basket of dried corn and roasted yucca for Pike. There was no conversation, only the kind of silence shared by two people who have already said enough without speaking. Hours passed. The camp resumed its rhythm, though the glances never fully stopped. Pike worked quietly to remove the stone fragment from Jasper's hoof and applied damp cloth to cool the swelling. His hands were careful, patient. He spoke to the horse the way some men pray. Some of the younger Apache children watched him from a distance. At first, they kept several paces away, whispering behind hands and peeking around poles. But when Jasper snorted softly and nudged Pike's shoulder, their curiosity broke through fear. Two brave ones came closer. Pike looked up slowly, smiled just enough to ease their nerves, and let them touch the horse's mane. The animal lowered its head gently, sensing the softness of the moment. For the first time since he arrived, a few of the watching adults relaxed, just a little. That evening, when the sun dipped into a molten red horizon, the Apache gathered around their fire. The night air cooled, carrying the smell of mesquite and sage. Shadows danced across rocks as the flames flickered. Pike sat alone, not wanting to intrude, but not excluded either. He was simply present, like a distant star in the sky. Seen, but not fully known. A storyteller began to speak, telling of the first horses that came to this land, of how the Apache learned to ride them, not as beasts to command but as partners of the wind. The children leaned against their mother's sides, listening with wide eyes. Pike listened too, though he understood only fragments. Stories have a way of being understood beyond language. After the storytelling ended, Taham approached the fire and spoke with the authority of someone used to leading. He spoke of the drought that was creeping across their hunting grounds, of the buffalo herds that had migrated further north than usual, of the horses that had grown weaker with little grass left to graze. Pike felt the eyes of the camp shift to him, not accusing, not hostile, but weighing. Naeli finally broke the silence that had stretched between them since they arrived. The cowboy knows the northern plains. He has traveled past the Badlands and across the high steppe. He has seen where the herds now move. Taham looked at her sharply. And you think he would guide us? You think he gives knowledge without price? Pike spoke for the first time among them. I don't ask for payment. I owe you my life. I pay what I owe. His voice was simple, flat, without flourish. He didn't try to convince them. He didn't plead. He just stated truth. The Apache respected truth. Naeli studied him for a moment. Longer. She saw no trembling in him, no arrogance, no hidden motive. Just a man who had lost things he no longer spoke of. A man who had survived, not because he was stronger than others, but because he refused to stop walking. Taham did not speak for several seconds. When he finally replied, his words came slow, deliberate. You will ride with us. You will show us where the land still feeds life. But hear this, cowboy, if you lead us to danger, if you betray this trust, you will not die quickly. Pike nodded once. Fair. The crackling of the fire filled the silence. The stars above were bright enough to show the faint milky path of the heavens. Naeli sat next to the cowboy, not close enough to touch, but close enough to show what mattered. She was not ashamed to stand beside him. In the distance, coyotes called to each other across the wide desert dark. And somewhere out there, as if waiting for its cue, a column of dust was rising, men on horseback, armed and coming fast, though no one in the camp knew yet. But the land knew, and the land was already listening.